Chasidus on the Parsha, Parsha's Bow. So in this week's Parsha, we get a rundown of what's happening when the Jews are leaving Egypt. And Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu that in the middle of the night, I'm going to come, I'm going to strike all the Egyptian firstborns, they're going to die, and there's going to be a lot of commotion. And then the verse says, V'daber na ba'aznei ha'am, v'sha'alu ish me'es re'ehu, v'isha me'es reusa, klei kesef v'klei zahav. Speak please in the ears of the people. Let each man request from his friend and each woman from her friend articles of silver and articles of gold. So basically Hashem is saying that before you leave, I want you to make sure that the Jewish people take with them gold and silver from the Egyptians. Because I promised Abraham, this is what our rabbis say, that when the Jewish people would leave Egypt, they would leave with great wealth. And now they're about to leave, so I have to make sure they leave with great wealth. So make sure you take gold and silver from the Egyptians. Now, many commentators, they look at this verse and they see something unusual that perplexes them. See, the verse says, V'shalu ish me'es re'ehu v'isha me'es re'usa. A man should borrow from his fellow, like another man, and a woman should borrow from her fellow, seeming like another woman. Why wouldn't Hashem just say, when the Jews leave Egypt, make sure they borrow from the Egyptians or take gold and silver from the Egyptians? Why does it have to single out and speak and say extra words like every man from his fellow, every woman from her fellow? The Torah doesn't like to waste words. So the Tolos Yaakov Yosef, which is the first Hasidic sefer ever printed, I believe it was printed in like the 1780s, he says that, he quotes from a sefer called Ben Uri, that says that Hashem is saying, because the word re'ehu means like a friend, but it also can imply somebody who's like you, similar to you. So what's the similarity over here? He says the similarity here is socioeconomic, meaning that the verse is saying that every rich Jewish man should only take gold and silver from a rich Egyptian man, and every, let's say, poor Jewish woman, or, could be vice versa, it doesn't matter, should only take gold and silver from a poor Egyptian woman. Okay, I guess that could be a meaning of the word re'ehu, like fellow, meaning somebody of similar socioeconomic background, but of what consequence is that? Why would Hashem want that? It kind of seems strange. There's no logical explanation to explain such a thing. So the Tolos Yaakov Yosef teaches us a klal. This is the klal gadol in Chasidus. This is a general rule that you have to know about Chasidus and Hasidic thought. And this is the first Hasidic work ever printed. So what better sefer to outline this in? Which is that the whole purpose of us being on the planet is to elevate holy sparks, meaning to take that which is mundane and turn it into something holy. So for example, a person is going to eat a sandwich. A sandwich is probably the pinnacle of what we would consider to be mundane. However, before you eat the sandwich, you have to wash your hands and make a blessing on the washing of the hands, and then you have to make a blessing before you eat the bread, and then after you eat it, you make a blessing on what you've eaten, a bracha achrona, and then let's say somebody uses the energy that they consumed from that sandwich, the calories, and they use that to go do mitzvahs, to go give charity, or to go learn Torah. So now something as mundane as eating a sandwich caused you to make a blessing before eating it, a blessing after eating it, and it also gave you the energy to do all these mitzvahs. So you now have taken something that is in the mundane world and you've elevated it and made it a vessel of holiness. Now the sandwich is a vessel of holiness. So it all kind of depends on your intentions when you do something. The table that we are using right now to record this class, you could use this table to play cards or to gamble on it, okay, and then the table just remains something mundane. But if you use the table to learn Torah on it, now you've elevated the status of that table. And that is the whole purpose of creation. The purpose of creation is to take what we call gashmias, things that are in the physical, mundane world, and elevate them to the higher world of Kedusha through using them as a way to serve Hashem. So now, Hashem, he knows everything. He calculates everything out. And with this background, we can understand now what the verse is trying to say. Because every single person has this same job, but some people are farther along in their job. There are people who have been doing this type of thing their whole life. Every time they've eaten something, they have had this type of intention. Anytime they get a gift, a car, or of even like, I don't know, a TV, God forbid, but whatever you want, there's always some way that you could find a way to channel that thing for holiness. So some people have always done this their whole lives. And other people have kind of dropped the ball up to this point. And all it is a flip of the switch in the brain, right? There's no it's not really a hard thing to do. It's just you got to be cognizant of it, right? So God knows where you're holding, and he knows where your neighbor's holding. And he gives you the tools in your life to be able to achieve the quota that you need. So now we can understand the verse with this background. When it says that every man borrows from another man, and we're saying it means it's similar socioeconomic, a person has to realize and say, okay, if somebody's poor, meaning they don't have a lot of the stuff in the physical world, they don't have a lot of the gashmias, there's a reason for that. Why? Because God says you don't need a lot of tables, you don't need a lot of money or computers or whatever it is, because the whole purpose of having those things is to elevate them. You've already done that. You're very close to hitting your quota that you've already hit. So that's why I make you poor, because poor people don't have as many of those things because they don't need it. So therefore, when the Jews were leaving Egypt, some Jews had a lot of quota that they still had to fill of elevating the mundane. And then there were some Jews who didn't have a lot left. They had served in Egypt as slaves, but the whole time they were thinking of Hashem. So those poor Jews should only need to borrow from another poor Egyptian because they only need to take a little bit of gold and a little bit of silver and then elevate that through however, either giving charity with it or using it for the construction of a temple or something. They only had a little bit left in that quota because they had served their whole lives this way. While perhaps somebody who was wealthy, the reason why they're wealthy is because they've been dropping the ball up to this point. And so therefore they need to take from an Egyptian that has a lot because they still have themselves a lot to do. So he says from this that now we realize that a person who's poor and in poverty should not even be jealous of somebody who's rich. They should not be envious. And somebody who's rich needs to have humility because they're rich because they have a lot more they need to accomplish. They drop the ball, so to speak, perhaps, with the elevation of the sparks. And he says if we could internalize this message, and there wouldn't be people who are jealous. Like somebody else starts another YouTube channel and it takes away from your YouTube channel. You don't get upset because that means that, okay, I don't need any more sparks to elevate as much as this other person might because I've already done a lot. Somebody opens a store next to you and now you're not as rich as you used to be. That's a way of God showing you that you don't need as much physicality anymore because you've already done a good job. You can just focus on pure spirituality now. So let us try to take this message and internalize it. Have a good Shabbos.